Okay. Good morning. Thank you for joining the Michigan Alliance for Greater Mobility Advancement MAGMA Advisory Council meeting. I'm Michelle Economo-Uresti, the Executive Director of the Workforce Intelligence Network, known as WIN. MAGMA is convened by WIN and is comprised of automotive OEMs, automotive suppliers, and industry stakeholder groups. On behalf of the MAGMA Governing Board, I would like to thank and welcome our moderator and panel of speakers. This event will cover the recently posted WIN 2024 Annual Labor Market Key Findings and two Deloitte studies, including Tech Trends 2025 and Human Capital Trends 2025 Key Findings. As the speaker was unavailable from Deloitte on human capital trends, I summarized the 106-page study and will presenting the highly informative key findings. As I'm not the author of the report, I will not be taking questions on human capital trends and encourage attendees to pull down the report from the internet. Our moderator this morning is WIN Project Manager Lori Huber, who has been supporting the MAGMA Governing Board activities. Lori brings more than 20 years of leadership and project management experience working in both community-based and post-secondary institutions. She worked in facilities, student services, including serving as the inaugural Director of Admissions at Oakland Community College, OCC. Lori also served as interim Associate Dean of Student Services as one of the 5 campus locations. Lori has served on several Michigan Community College organizational boards and committees, including Treasurer of the Executive Board of the Michigan Association of College Registrars and Admission Officers, conference committees, and the Michigan Community College Athletic Association Board. Lori is a proud alumnus of the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, where she earned a Bachelor of Science degree. She continued her education at Purdue University, completing a Master in Recreation and Leisure Activities, and began working with the YMCA. After a decade at the Y in Indiana and Ohio, her family relocated to Michigan, where she completed her MBA at Ferris State University while working at OCC. I welcome Lori. And Lori, please feel welcome to introduce our next speaker.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate the introduction, and good morning to all of our guests today and our 3 presenters with whom I will quickly introduce them. We will start with Abhijit from Deloitte. He's going to be presenting on the 2025 Tech Trends. Haley Porter, who is one of our research team members and project managers at WIN, and Michelle Uresti. She'll be bringing up our 3rd speaker series around summarizing the human capital trends from Deloitte. To get started, we have Abhijit, who is a professional storyteller with Deloitte's Office of the CTO. Through research, writing, and presentations, he helps Deloitte and its clients envision better prepare for the future of technology. His background in strategy consulting has exposed him to a variety of industries, and as a writer, he takes keen interest in the intersections of technology, ethics, artificial intelligence, and human impacts. I bring you Abhijit from Deloitte.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the introduction, Lori. And I got to say, I'm already intimidated by your introduction, that you got more degrees than I can count. So it's an honor to be here. I actually just spent a week of holiday in Michigan, visiting Munising and Pictured Rocks and Mackinac Island. So it's good to be back with my Michiganders here. And yeah, I'm here to bring you the Tech Trends 2025 report from Deloitte. Hopefully everybody can see the slides that I'm sharing. If Lori, if you mind just giving me like a quick yes, just to verify.
Yep, you're good to go. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. So with that said, I'll go ahead and get started then. So like Lori said, my name is Abhijit Ravanuthala. I'm a manager in the Office of the CTO, and I've been steeped in all things emerging tech and tech trends for several years now as a member of the Siemens one of the writers of the Tech Trends report. I have about 20 minutes to speed through this wonderful content with you all today. So I want to make sure that you use the opportunity here to take that QR code and go ahead and scan that and download the report, or just view it at your own leisure. Consider it good bedtime reading. I would say we put a lot of work into making sure it's one of the most accessible and digestible, readable reports that are out there in a world of in a sea of reports that you guys have to sift through. The Tech Trends report itself, for those who don't know, it's one of Deloitte's sort of marquee and signature reports that we put out in the market. It's our 16th year doing it. About 3 or 4 of those previous years are collected on my bookshelf right here, and the point of a Tech Trends really is to chronicle what's now, what's new, and what's next in enterprise technology. The bulk of it is really focused on what we think is going to become mainstream in the next 18 to 24 months. And the way we go about doing that is actually doing a ton of research. So we interview executives who are at different clients that we serve that seem to be at the forefront of different technologies. We interview startups, we interview people who work at universities, and of course, some of our own experts in the market, and pull together a view of what seems like basically the signs of the future, right? There's a saying that from a sci-fi author of the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And that's the way that we sort of think about tech trends and finding where exactly the value of emerging tech is going to be. So for this year's report, the 16th, the theme of the report is, you guessed it, AI. It's sort of the topic on the tip of everyone's tongues. And what we're talking about, though, in the report is not just this notion of more AI all the time, but more the idea of AI being ubiquitous or everywhere in the way that we think about electricity or HTTP. And what I mean by that is we don't really think about it too much, right? Most of us, we walk into a room and flip on the switch and expect it to work. And we think that this is really the direction that AI is going to be headed, is sort of woven into the fabric of our lives in the same way, so that we start to expect it to work in the same way and get value from it without all of the rigmarole and the focus that it's the sort of the headlines that it gets today. Sort of taking that natural hype cycle from being on the forefront of everyone's minds to being just merely very useful. We may not get there in 2 years, it may take a little longer, but we do think that this is where the sort of trajectory of AI is headed, and we see signs of that happening already, which I'll get into. So the Tech Trends report itself, every single year, is organized into a framework of macro technology forces. What we have on the top of the slide here are our elevating forces, those things that we think are really pushing technology forward. And we think about those as sort of eternities that exist across the history of information technology. And in another time, if we have Q&A later, I may be able to get into more of how we came about with this framework. But at a high level, we think about what is the way that we interact with the machine, and what is a human-computer interaction? That's a major macro force. How do machines and computers store information? That's a second. And how does actual computation of a given emerging technology work, right? So those are our 3 elevating forces pushing technology forward. And then, of course, businesses, organizations like MAGMA and others also have to deal with a lot of other realities around technology, not just the stuff that's, not just the sexiest things about technology. There's also the business of tech and tech talent. There's cyber and trust that is required to protect all of that information that's held in technology. And finally, there's core modernization, because yesterday's white hot technologies can become tomorrow's legacy upgrade headaches. And it's a matter of being able to make sure that our technologies continue to serve us and get upgraded over the long run. So this is how we organize the report. And with that, let me go ahead and get started with the first chapter in the report, which is focused on the interaction that you see there in the top left. So this year, the interaction chapter is all about spatial computing. Now, this term may be new to some of you. For some of you, you may be like, yeah, of course, spatial computing makes a ton of sense, especially given the space that you play in with mobility and car manufacturing. So what is spatial computing for those who are unaware? So spatial computing is where we sort of bridge the physical and digital worlds by bringing together different types of data. So imagine being able to bring together data that is captured through computer vision that shows exactly how a machine on the factory floor is working, along with digital data that you have on just car runtimes, et cetera, and bringing together something that allows you to create a sort of digital picture of something that exists in the physical world, right? Maybe the best way to think about this is, we have one of the examples that we have in the report is an energy company that has gone out and actually applied drones to go out and search some of the oil fields that it owns and actually understand, how is the lay of the land along their different drills. What is the environment looking like? Is there any erosion at some of their oil sites? And applying computer vision to that to sort of digitize that physical data and then be able to have this overall view where they can say, okay, I think our sites A and B are performing adequately, but site C seems like in a few months there may be some erosion that's going to affect how much we're able to extract oil from that site. So there's all this interesting things that people are doing now by being able to take physical data that previously couldn't be measured and digitized in the same way, and actually bringing it into the digital world by combining those data sets. The way that we're thinking about it in this chapter is, up till now, it's been a lot of, it's been filled to the rim with sims, or there's been a lot of digital simulations that companies are trying out in order to figure out, what is coming down the pike, how can I better prepare for the future and scenario plan. But what's happening, that's exciting now is, as I mentioned, the ability to bring together different types of data, especially when AI is able to do some of that for you, right? To collect data and put different types of data into sort of one data set that you can use to create this sort of more larger spatial data set. A really fun example that I like on here is the Benfica one on the top of the slide. This is a Portuguese soccer club that has actually decided, spatial data is the way forward in terms of, understanding their club and how they plan for their players. So what they've done is actually, like many sports stadiums, they have cameras all around the stadium in order to capture the exciting action that's happening during games and practices. And they said, okay, we have all this data on cameras. Why don't we apply computer vision to it? So what they're able to do is get all of this detailed data on exactly how a player walks, how they run to the ball, how they might look when they're injured versus, feeling really good, how they tend to pass to each other, et cetera. And by digitizing all of that and keeping it in one place, you can imagine that they went many steps beyond what we're used to with X's and circles on a chalkboard when it comes to coaching. And this sort of data and spatial awareness has also allowed Benfica to be, have some of the highest value player trades in their soccer circuit as well. So it's not just for their play, but it's also Moneyball on steroids, as I like to say. All of this is leading towards a future where an AI is going to be able to collect these types of different data and help us create new user interfaces, which is super exciting in terms of the possibility of what's next. So that's a little bit about interaction and what's going on with spatial computing. Let me move on to the next macro force, which I said was information. Now, in most years, the information trend in tech trends is where we really talk about AI. But of course, this year AI is suffused throughout the report as as it's top of mind for everybody, and it's starting to be infused into so much of what we do. So this year specifically, though, the trend that we're seeing is people moving beyond these huge large language models that have taken up a lot of headlines over the past few years, and starting to get into different ways of applying AI in their companies. So up till now, the struggle that many organizations are having that we've talked to is just getting the fundamentals right. It's all about data management, cleansing, tagging, responsibility, et cetera, et cetera. And it makes a big difference. Those who have been able to do that are, finding that they're able to get value from their generative AI pilots or experiments much quicker, whereas those who haven't quite figured out their data find that their AI experiments just stay experiments instead of moving into true value and helping their organization move forward. So one of the things that we're seeing is organizations finding that it's better to apply different horses to different courses. That means not everybody needs to use a large language model that is capable of analyzing years of customer service records, delving into financial statements, and also helping you get over a bad breakup. We don't need the LLM that does all of those things at once, maybe, right? Instead, people are looking at small language models, which are hyper-focused on specific tasks, so that you can have one that's specifically really, really good at inventory or really, really good at financial planning, and actually get the value that you would get by supercharging one of your own employees who works in that space to work and get all of that, to get sort of all of that work done much quicker than they could before. This is exactly the sort of thing that we saw at companies like Eastman and Databricks on the slide here. And Databricks, I'll just quickly go over that example. The way that they're thinking about AI is really interesting, and I think it's a model for how a lot of organizations can in the future. They're talking about organizing AI in the same way that we organize our people in the workplace, so that small language models address specific types of data, other applications run calculations, and a sort of overall compound AI system delivers the solution better than any one component could do alone. And of course, as we get into that, there's tons happening in the space of agentic AI as well that I can definitely talk through during Q&A. So in the space of computation, what's happening here that's really exciting is hardware is eating the world, right? This is a play on the dictum by the VC Mark Andreessen years ago of software is eating the world. This is really a space to talk about the fact that getting AI chips, getting access to AI chips and resources is top of mind for many organizations who want to start to implement that in their organization. It's also amazing that I get to write a report for Deloitte where I put Chips Ahoy in the title. I mean, that was a career highlight, if I can be frank. So, one of the best ways to sort of think about this trend and what is happening in the computation space is through the examples on this slide. So, infrastructure in many ways is becoming strategic again for organizations like HP, right? So they are figuring out ways to share those precious GPU resources, those chips that enable many of those large AI workloads, that are those demanding workloads, by actually enabling sort of GPU resource sharing across the enterprise, so that people who are wanting some of that AI firepower don't have to go out and buy new AI chips for each division of the organization that needs to get access to that. Instead, they're finding ways to share it. And they, one of the folks that we talked to there, the senior director of AI PCs, predicts that the transition to AI-enabled devices will be, as significant as going from command line inputs to graphical user interfaces in the 1990s. We also talked to Dell, who's at the forefront of this, and they mentioned that about 400 million PCs are due for a strategic refresh. Suddenly, the enterprise laptops that we all carry around are a lot more strategic and a part of our company's decisions about whether we build or buy or upgrade, as all of them can have more AI potential embedded in them. And an exciting direction that this is all headed, which you see a lot of people talking about these days, is physical AI, as we move from chips in phones and laptops and chips into robots who can actually move out in the world and work in some of the factory floors that y'all are more than aware of, or in other cases, even in healthcare settings or others. All right. I know I'm getting close to 20 minutes here, so I'm going to speed through some of the grounding forces. So, as I said before, these grounding forces are the ones where we are thinking about sort of the realities of leading and maintaining IT organizations, right? The first one is this idea of IT amplified by AI. So as more and more organizations are building AI tools for their customers, they're trying to figure out how they can get value from it. One of the main ways that they're finding value is actually applying AI to their own development processes, right? One of the best examples of this is Google, who's been able to roll out code assist tools to their own developers, and along the way, ensuring human oversight for data privacy and compliance and security. But all of this has enabled them to go from, I think starting from zero, they're hoping to get to a place in the next year or two where more than 50% of their code is developed with the help of AI. And some may say this is taking away some work from developers, but the way Google sees it is actually, no, our developers are actually getting closer aligned to business needs and impacts, because there's less time spent figuring out things between the business and IT, and more time spent actually delivering value on what the business is looking for. So exciting things happening there in terms of how companies are starting to use this. And then the next trend is all about cyber and trust. And this one is specifically not AI related, but it harkens to another emerging technology that is a few years out, of quantum computing. This trend is actually one of my favorite for the year, just because of how interesting and potentially huge this could be. The overall story here, folks, is the cryptography that we rely on today to undergird our financial transactions online, anything that we're sort of used to doing online, is great for the most part for classical computers. Classical computers can't really brute force hack a lot of the things that we do online today. But if a sufficiently available and powerful quantum computer comes along, we don't know when that date is yet, but it seems that it could happen in the next 5 to 10 years. That quantum computer could break all of today's encryption, within a matter of hours or days. And when that point comes, organizations are going to want to be ready. There's already cyber attackers taking this approach now called harvest now, decrypt later, where they know that they're not going to be able to break through brute force some of the encrypted data that organizations like JP Morgan on the slide have. So what they've done is taken that data and sort of downloaded it off and said, okay, once we have access to a quantum computer, then we're gonna decrypt this and hold this data for ransom, right? So organizations like JP Morgan have already started modernizing their data inventories and trying to upgrade everything to be quantum safe. And thankfully, US government, as well as other global governments, have released new sets of cryptographic standards that will make data stores more quantum safe for the future that is coming. So that brings me to my last trend of the intelligent core and core modernization. As I mentioned at the outset, core ERP systems are one of those things that were white hot innovations years ago, and they're now sort of legacy systems of record that become very important sources of truth for enterprises. And thankfully, AI is fundamentally changing that model so that outdated systems or outdated code doesn't necessarily need to be a hamper to organizations who want to get the most out of these. An interesting way to look at it is basically that businesses need more from their systems of record, but oftentimes data can be siloed across different divisions. Different systems don't really know how to speak to each other, and it's frankly it can just be hard and take a lot of time from one or two individuals to get all of the value together, and sometimes it just doesn't happen, right? What we saw from talking to Graybar, who's an electrical and communications wholesaler, is they had this exact situation, and they actually applied AI as an interaction layer atop all of their core and ERP systems, so that the AI would do the work of pulling different types of data from different places and put it together for them, so that their sales staff, when they're talking to somebody to try upgrade a customer to move to the next level, they're actually getting data from this AI that's pulling together things from all over the place and giving them exactly what they need to convince that customer. So it's actually, using all of that data that's collected when organizations tell us this call is being recorded for customer quality. They found ways to, with the advent of AI, really go through all of that data, put it together, and make it valuable to them. And the real, sort of value unlock for this, which is, the big bet being made by companies like ServiceNow and Salesforce and others who are investing tons into AI, is actually applying AI agents into those core systems, so that people are able to interact with the agents instead of having to code some of those systems themselves, or instead of having to draw some of that information themselves. They can simply ask AI to go and do those things for them, to simply say, hey, we have a new hire onboarding tomorrow, and the AI goes into the system and pulls everything that it needs to help that new hire on board with all of the different contracts and documentations that are necessary. So enterprise information at the blink of an eye, and able to speak back to us in a way that helps us actually converse through information. So that, folks, is the report for this year. If you're interested in continuing the conversation on any of these are the executive editors of our report, and we'd love to spark more conversations. I would also just leave you with this and say, thank you for your time, and be sure to check out that QR code if you're interested in seeing more about the report. Happy to answer questions now or later as well, depending on what time we have.
Sure. Thank you very much, Abhijit. I had a variety of responses to all that information, little butterflies when it comes to quantum computing. But it was good news too, in a sense that it's hard to put a pause on it. I'll ask Amanda to see if there's anything in the chat. I do not see anything.
Nope,
pause
nothing
for
at
a
this
minute,
time.
but I'm going to guess that there will be some. Sorry, Amanda.
I did not see anything at this
Okay.
time.
We've got a few when we come back to the Q&A at the end of the presentations. And speaking of AI, SEMCA and WIN has a policy where we do not allow AI assistance on our presentations, but this is being recorded and it will be sent out post-meeting. So Haley Porter has joined us today to give us some key highlights on the WIN data and research team's labor market information. Haley serves as an associate program manager and research assistant for WIN, where she focuses on labor market data research, project management activities for data-driven workforce initiatives and communications. Haley also works on the U.S. DOL H-1B1 Workforce Building an Industry Infinity Supply Chain Initiative at WIN. With several years of experience at WIN, she has demonstrated proficiency in project management, labor market research, analytics, and workforce development. Haley holds a Master's of Public Administration with an emphasis on nonprofit management from Grand Valley State University. She also earned a Bachelor's of Science in Public and Nonprofit Administration at GVSU, minoring in Business Administration and Hospitality and Tourism. Haley, we're glad to have you here. I will turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Lori. It looks like you should be able to see my screen. So let me know if there's any issues with that.
It's good.
So we are going to go over the labor market reports, the annual and Q4 2024. For those of you that are not real used to these reports, we do go over 11 key occupation groups. Each of the counties have a variety of those 11, most focus on 5 different ones. There's 19 counties in the state of Michigan, and then the city of Detroit and Wind Region are both quarterly. So we send those out after Q1, Q2, Q3, and then Q4 is just their focus on Q4, while the other ones are just the annual. And look at the 2024 trends in total. For each occupation group, we cover the current employment, demographics, job postings, in-demand skills, wages, required education, and that's just the occupation focus. Each of the reports has a large beginning part that goes over some of the things we'll go over today. So the highlights from 2024, there was labor force growth in Wind Region, the state of Michigan. These are their numbers, but also labor force growth in every area we looked at. The unemployment rate stood at 4.5, so that was a little bit of an increase from the previous year, but it is almost matching the pre-pandemic levels, which is a good sign. Job postings declined in 2024 compared to 2023. The Wind Region averaged the 133,682, and state of Michigan averaged 200,547 postings per month in Q4 2024. The top occupational demand was for customer service in all regions. Out of the 11 occupational groups, healthcare was close to number 2 in almost all areas as well. And then the educational demand is almost always bachelor's degrees or high school diplomas, depending on the occupation. And that is across all areas as well. So for this presentation, we're just looking at state of Michigan and Wind Region. I encourage you to look at the other areas, especially if you live in or serve a certain area that we focus on. It's definitely good information and is a little more focused to your area instead of just the general state of Michigan. So here are the trends. You can see this line, the black line is the labor force continually increasing after COVID. Employment had that huge dip, but that is increasing as well. And then the unemployment rate after its large increase during COVID has been decreasing, but like I said, is increasing a little bit after the 2023. This is the same trend with Wind Region. Employment is increasing, employment is increasing, labor force is increasing, and then we have that decrease on unemployment rate, but then also a little increase in 2024. So we'll be watching that in the future to see what goes on with the unemployment rate. The average quarterly postings, so these are job postings. We look at the past 5 quarters. So you can kind of see the trends. It definitely depends on the area. So like in Arbor, where there's a lot of students, they have a little bit different of trends. Lance or Ingham as well. But both of these are pretty similar, a drop in Q4 postings, and then a little bit increase in Q1, and then Q4 is a drop again. So these, we do go farther in some of these, but the reports are always just the 5 quarters. For some of our presentations, we look at a longer time period. The top posting occupation groups, this is what I was talking about earlier. Customer service is almost always number one. There is quite a large amount of occupations that go into this occupation group, which can help lead to this larger number. Healthcare is number 2. Registered nurses, which is the top occupation across, I believe, all areas, for both regular postings and entry-level postings. Definitely leads to a lot of our skills that we'll see in a moment, top posting skills, education, all of that. But registered nurses is the top job posting. And then you can kind of see as these follow each other pretty closely for Wynn Region and State of Michigan. Here's the education levels for State of Michigan and Wynn Region. The high school or GED is the 27 and 26%. Associate's degree usually isn't super high in these. Master's degree, it depends on the area. And the PhD or professional degree is a 2%, 3%. No education listed. Is it like if you were looking at Indeed for a job and it just doesn't say anything about what they're looking for education? So that leads to a lot of them where the job posting just doesn't say anything. So then we look at the specialized common skills and credentials for State of Michigan. This is for all postings. So you can kind of figure out with like customer service being the top occupation group, that makes sense with merchandising being a specialized skill for number 1. Nursing, like I said, registered nurses are the top occupation for job postings. And so nursing, as you see in the credentials, and leads to a lot of the health related requirements. Common skills, communication is almost always number 1 for all jobs, all occupations, and just in general. So these are really interesting to look at if you are preparing people for jobs, really getting them to have some of these top skills. And then we do break these down for the individual occupations in the reports. This is just the general for State of Michigan overall. The Wynn region mirrors those. Merchandising is number 1. Communication is number 1. Credentials, valid driver's license, is almost always within the top 5, if not number 1. Is almost always on those job postings. As well as we see a lot of CDL's requirements too. Then we look at the census and demographics for the workforce, for general demographics of the area, and break it down into this chart for the report. And you can kind of see based on age, sex, race, and ethnicity of those that are in the work or the labor force for Michigan. So we start with the top and then break it down from there, or the total, and break it down from there. And it's always interesting too to see the unemployment rate for based on age, sex, race, see where that unemployment rate is higher. And those are individuals that are looking for a job and cannot find them. It's not just those that don't have a job. They must be looking for the job. Same with Wynn region, we see similar trends. And these charts you could look at for quite a while, digesting these numbers. So feel free to look at the reports and really go over these individually. We also have We look at the commuting patterns, which can be very interesting of where people live and where people work. And for those of us that work remotely, I think this is very interesting too, to see, where people are. Oakland County, Wayne County have been switched in these. This is where state of Michigan workers live and then where they work. Then Macomb and Kent County are switched in both of these as well. Genesee, so these are the top ones, the large cities, of course. So yeah, you can look at Oakland County, there's 17.6% of the residents work there, while 13.8% live there. And then all other locations for state of Michigan is quite large. So again, another one that would be great to look at for your area. We also look at job postings by city. So this is for state of Michigan, these large cities, and you can see the numbers right here. There's a lot in Grand Rapids, Detroit, Ann Arbor, Lansing. I don't think that's a huge surprise for the majority of these. And then what I was talking about with the top posted jobs. So registered nurses are almost always number one. You can also see what these jobs require for entry-level education. So that breaks it down by color. So we have registered nurses, retail salespersons, the heavy and tractor trailer truck drivers, which makes sense with the CDL requirements. And so just breaking these down for our state of Michigan and the WIN region. They both end with medical assistants. They're very similar between the two. So then we look at, like I said, each occupation group for so these are all the 11 occupations listed, but which ones increased and which ones decreased with number of postings or number of workers. So agriculture, business, and finance, all of these had an increase in workers. IT only went up by 5, but it was an increase. Number of workers in Michigan in the last year. Engineers and designers and skilled trades and technicians, they both decreased. So that was interesting. I believe in 2023, all of them had increased. So this is just for the state of Michigan. Each area has a little bit different for the number of workers, but yeah, it does to see that there's number of workers decreasing, especially in skilled trades and technicians. I think we definitely need to look at that farther. So all this information can be found on our website as these individual reports. I suggest looking at them, downloading the ones that you find interesting. We release these annual ones around May of each year. The Q1 2024 or 2025 will be released in hopefully within the next month or within June. Sorry, I keep thinking it's May. So within June, and then we go from there. So you can request also us to present this information if you want us to go more in depth. This was a little bit shorter of a presentation, but we can definitely go into more of each report based on area, based on what you're looking for. But go ahead and, so this leads to the presentation request form, but you can also use this to lead to the website and then go from there to find our reports. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Haley.
That's the end. Thanks,
Yeah,
Lori.
very good, very informative. One little question popped up in the chat we can do now, and then get into any questions in the Q&A section. Has there been a shift, any shift in the demand for communication skills since artificial intelligence has been rolled out? Is there any anomalies there?
For communication, I believe it's always been pretty high as a skill. So no, we haven't seen much of a change in that. It
Okay.
has always been one like the top skill that people are looking for, that job employers are looking for.
Mm-hmm. And another quick question, which that I brought to my attention too, the decrease in engineers and skilled trades. Does this possibly mean that there are fewer postings or less people interested in those jobs? Any thoughts?
So that was number of workers. So there's less people working in those occupations. I don't know specifically about the job postings, but usually the job postings would lead to the workers. I wonder if those are, well, the engineers and designers, we've seen a decrease since COVID. I'm not sure what the reasoning is behind that, but that's been that from COVID. The skilled trades is, my guess is the retiring workforce.
Okay. Very good. Thank you again, Haley. We'll come to some more Q&A at the end. To answer your question, yes, the recording will be available along with all the slide presentations. We come to Michelle Economou-Oresti. In 2017, Michelle has served as the WIN Executive Director. She develops data-driven regional workforce strategies and writes grant proposals, resulting in approximately $145 million of workforce training and supportive services funding to the Southeast Michigan region. Michelle utilizes a team-based leadership philosophy to manage nonprofit, virtual, high-paced organization and utilizes lean principles to maximize service impact and ensure financial solvency. Michelle currently serves on the Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, SEMCOG, Legislative Policy Task Force, SEMCOG Delegate at Large, SEMCOG Economic Development Task Force. She also serves on Oakland 80 Leadership Team and Wayne County College Access Network Leadership Team. Prior to WIN, Michelle served 2 4-year elected terms as the West Bloomfield Township Supervisor by fulfilling the role of a full-time mayor and city manager for the 5th largest of 1,240 townships. Michelle, bring to us an overview of the 2025 Deloitte Human Trends Report.
Thank you, Lori, for that warm introduction. I'm going to pull up my slide deck, and I see we're already in ready to go mode. I am presenting today the Deloitte Global Human Capital Trends 2025 report. I have had speakers on this in the past. This year we couldn't obtain a speaker from Deloitte, so I actually did the courtesy of summarizing this 106-page report for us today. The authors of the report are noted here, so I'd like to just give them, a little bit of a shout out for the hard work that they did in essentially condensing responses. As you're likely aware, if you have seen the Deloitte Human Capital Trends 2024 key findings last year, they polled 10,000 businesses and human resources leaders from across various sectors and they obtained feedback at the worker, manager, and executive levels. And this particular study poses questions as should we consider eliminating managers? Should we consider replacing some entry-level work with AI? Should we consider people coming back to work on site? And should we consider investing in artificial intelligence? The findings focus is in 9 key areas, turning tensions into triumph. Stagility, reclaiming organizational capacity, the human value proposition for artificial intelligence, closing the experience gap, new tech, new work, motivation at the value of 1. Oops, I clicked too fast. Reinventing performance management and the value of the manager role. First and foremost, turning tensions into triumphs. Leaders are in a wait and see cycle and unsure about how to make choices to balance business and human outcomes to drive the business forward. Last year, the emerging tension between business and human outcomes was in response to a growing, boundaryless world of work and how to navigate it. And now artificial intelligence enters into that equation as well. So both exist. High performance requires a balance between business and human outcomes. And the human element is becoming one of the most important factors in unlocking and sustaining organizational performance. Only 6% of respondents report strong progress in establishing human sustainability or the ability to create value for all people connected to the organization. This year's theme reflects the duality leaders face of navigating uncertainty and challenges within leadership strategies and structure. For instance, is creating sources of stability and belonging for workers more important than creating agility? Should workers be given more empowerment? Should AI automate worker reinvention? And turning tensions into triumphs continued to make good decisions in ambiguity. You need to ensure you're considering the right data, not just the data that's easiest to collect. Consider input from multiple stakeholders and don't get bogged down trying to achieve consensus. Place decision-making responsibility at the right levels and with the people with the right experience. Research found that organizations that successfully increase the capacity of workers to grow personally use their imagination and think deeply, and they are 1.8 times more likely to report better financial results, 1.4 times more likely to create broad value for customers, community, and society, and 1.6 times more likely to say they provide workers with meaningful work. Motivating people to do what needs to be done can unleash human performance. According to the survey, few organizations recognize the power of motivation and learning about what motivates people to act, which can help organizations boost performance, spark innovation, and drive collective action for change. Today's workers are requested to learn new skills and ways of working. Survey results demonstrate a disconnect between executives and workers, citing that 85% of leaders are striving to create more agile ways to respond to market changes, while 75% of employees favor stability and 49% of employees are concerned about being left behind due to technology changes, rapid technology changes. How can leaders find the right balance between stability that workers are seeking and agility that organizations need to create stagility? Organizations should understand that there is a gap between knowledge and action and strive to create a clear path of action. During a corporate informal social experience, nearly 8 of 10 people, when asked how they were, responded busy. New tools promise to make things easier, add more layers of complexity, and shifting attention from outcomes that matter most. This can come at the cost of reduced performance, morale, culture, and innovation. The survey results should come as a wake-up call that 41% of work is considered non-essential by employees. Improving worker capacity hinges on two things: new corporate mindset on how to value slack or unassigned time that workers have autonomy to use, and a new mechanism to evaluate the best path to reducing or streamlining tasks and processes that create unnecessary work. Organizations must be intentional about how they are applying technology in ways that create new value for both the organization and the worker. For instance, Shell is using artificial intelligence to re-engineer monitoring and inspection processes at energy and chemical plants. AI does mundane tasks, makes work easier. AI is reshaping work. 60% of workers already view AI as a coworker. I know a few of my team, they have view AI as a coworker. Dr. Karasa, maybe. Okay, the value proposition must evolve to reflect human-machine collaboration, cross-functional teams that are empowered by AI. Again, the value proposition must evolve to reflect human-machine collaboration or cross-functional teams that are powered by artificial intelligence. Employees believe that the employer is responsible for their upskilling, reskilling, and employability. 66% of new hires lack required experience. 61% of jobs demand more experience than what may be included in the job description. Again, this pool, Deloitte polls 10,000 businesses at every single level. So manager, executive roles, human resources. Okay, the ability to gain experience to close the skills gap is complicated with AI taking on certain tasks and the erosion of apprenticeship from remote work. Only about half of U.S. workers with a bachelor's degree secure employment in a college level job within a year of education, and the other half end up unemployed for approximately 10 years. Hiring organizations, job seekers, and academia need to reflect on capabilities capabilities that organizations truly seek when they impose experience requirements so they can determine how to meet these needs. Again, hiring organizations, job seekers, and academia working collectively need to reflect on those organization needs that are truly needed to better prepare the talent pool. Hiring organizations that don't take steps to overcome the experience gap face the prospect of atrophied pipelines for future talent. Both workers, 72%, and executives at 73%, believe that workers need more opportunities to gain experience. So, research shows that managers only dedicate 13% of their time on hiring and onboarding. Managers should play a critical role in providing tacit or unwritten and intuitive pattern of work knowledge. Employers overwhelmingly believe internships yield high rates of return on investment for recruiting new hires and reduces long-term underemployment. Apprenticeships are also typically profitable investments for organizations and workers. For example, the UK's National Health Service has partnered with a number of universities to create a pathway to becoming a doctor through apprenticeship rather than traditional education. The cooperative education and work integrated learning programs combine periods of classroom instruction at educational institutions with paid discipline-related work experience at organizations. North University in the US and University of Waterloo in Canada are some examples of cooperative education and work integrated learning programs. The top business case drivers for technology investment were enabling a workforce to do more faster and decreasing cost. But respondents said the most important drivers are enabling workers and machines to create value together, enabling new value creation, and improving worker well-being. Leaders are in a new normal of being faced with hundreds of new technologies owned across multiple functions and stakeholders. 62% of leaders say it is critically important to organize and orchestrate new technologies in a world where traditional boundaries are disappearing. Challenges faced. My team says this technology will be game-changing. We have so many tools already. Will it create lasting value? Will cloud platform providers eventually incorporate the functionality, eliminating the need to procure it? Start by defining the intent of the technology. Failing to invest can undermine performance. A lot of challenges there leaders are facing. New tech, new work. Technology will reshape work and allow documents to be created by artificial intelligence while workers review and edit it. Technologies are intended to enhance or improve human capabilities, not replace them. Some next-gen technologies are probabilistic, promising large payoffs if they work, but risk if they fail. The time horizon on the return on investment is always unclear. It could be months, years, maybe 10 years. Leaders do not know what that ROI is when they invest in technology. 73% of executives said the number one challenge to determining the value of tech investments was the inability to define metrics. Organizations with metrics typically focus on productivity, cost avoidance, and slack for value added work. Slack time to work on value or create value added work. Organizations can create feedback loops to identify greater human performance and sustainability outcomes, such as well-being, loyalty, innovation, and risk mitigation. Tapping into the individual or unit of one to gain an understanding about what motivates them can translate to stronger performance gains. 32% of respondents indicated that they work to live or provide for a family. 25% work for purpose to affect positive change. 18% work because they enjoy a craft or trade. 13% work for tangible rewards such as wealth creation, and 11% work to win or become recognized as a leader or excelling. According to the survey results, only 33% of employees believe that their organization understands what motivates them. Organizations say customizing the design and experience of work is important, but very few do it. Motivating at the unit of one requires understanding and acting through one, collecting data about individual worker motivations and turning data into insights using artificial intelligence and human judgment, and matching people to meaningful work based on their motivations. 61% of managers and 72% of workers could not say that they trust their organization's performance management process. Only 6% of organizations indicate that they are doing a great job using data and evidence to capture the value of worker performance while enhancing trust. Do we need performance management? Consider shifting performance management or evaluation to engineering human performance, a holistic approach to elevating human and business outcomes together. Reinventing performance management is driven by defining its purpose and scope, designing to build trust and fairness, simplifying the process, and modeling it from the top. So the CEO performance evaluation should look like, every worker's evaluation. Create a human performance culture and organization design. Improve manager and people connections to obtain actionable feedback in evaluations, and redesign workforce practices from hiring to learning to recognition. There have been 42% fewer middle management job postings since 2022. Companies with strong management report up to 15% higher financial performance. Manager time allocations from the survey responses, very interestingly, 21% of the time managers spend on is spent on problem solving. 16% of their time is spent on administrative tasks. 15% on planning and strategizing. 15% on engaging with stakeholders and leaders. 14% on collaborating with other teams. 13% of their time is spent on developing subordinates, and 6% other. Key capability for tomorrow's middle managers is judgment, which requires experience and practice. The manager role is shifting to developing, coaching, motivating, nurturing, redesigning work, reallocating resources, optimizing human and machine interactions, engaging agility, strategic problem solving, and creating innovation. As stated earlier, 60% of workers view AI as a coworker, which has fundamentally reshaped work and the employer-worker relationship. Organizations must evolve their employee value proposition to reflect a new reality of human-machine collaboration. AI often removes routine tasks, leaving workers with only the most complex, cognitively demanding work. It can reduce autonomy, increase isolation, and diminish learning opportunities. These unintended consequences can erode trust and well-being if not addressed in the employee value proposition. To remain competitive and human-centered, organizations should acknowledge AI's impacts on workload, autonomy, and learning, using AI to personalize work and treat every worker like high potential by AI serving as a personal intern and a personalized coach. Share the plan on how AI will help create value for workers as human beings, thereby improving trust in human sustainability. Over 70% of managers and workers are more likely to join and remain with an organization if its employee value proposition helps them thrive in an AI-driven world. This is the end of the 106-page summary of the 2025 Global Human Capital Trends and Report, and I find this one as the most compelling since I have reviewed these in cases, presented them in the past since 2017. You can find the full report online. And really, thank you so much for being with us today. Lori's going to kick us into the Q&A panel discussion.
Yep, very good. Thank you, Michelle. Very thorough. If I could ask the presenters to be on deck. Got 2 or 3 questions, and if you as audience have some you can put in the chat, that would be great. We're going to circle back to Abhijit. There's a couple of questions that we have to kind of kick off this Q&A session. The first one is, what does the increasing use of AI mean for how white-collar workers should build their careers?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an important one, especially with all that Michelle just walked through of how things are changing and the difficulty that people are having sort of defining experience gaps and sort of trust in these technologies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? It's a big sort of topic du jour. One of the things that our team has been saying, we work alongside the chief futurist of Deloitte. His name is Mike Bechtel. And if for those who are interested, you can check out his latest presentation at South by Southwest, the conference that happens every year in Austin, where I live. And the title of that talk is called "Breadth is the New Depth: Why the Future Favors Learn-It-Alls over Know-It-Alls." And I think that sort of phrasing or thinking is really what we see happening in a world where AI starts to become more embedded into our daily work, more knowledgeable, and just more effective than it is now, right? In many cases, we may see today's AI systems or tools as like, it's not really doing what I want it to yet. It's not quite that effective, but it will be, right? It will be one day. There's no doubt about that. And so we have to sort of prepare for that world. And in that world, you may be the person who knows, the most about, the performance of this one division of your company and, everybody that's in it and all that. Frankly, if it comes to just being the person who knows the most, you'll never be able to know it as well or as comprehensively as an AI can, right? Just not the way our human brains work. Instead, expertise and that level of depth should be parlayed into other skills that are uniquely human, right? The creativity, the ingenuity, the empathy that comes with having these human bodies and walking around the way that we do. These are skills that we can bring to the table that allow us to have more diverse careers, right? To be serial specialists, if you will, to have breadth over depth, so that I may not need to keep all of this information in my head in a world where AI is able to sort of hold all of that for us. But I may be the best person to combine different sets of information with my own human experiences, with something my kid said last night at the dinner table, and come up with a brilliant new idea that changes how our organization works, right? So I think that's that's really what we're what Deloitte and what specifically our team is telling folks to look forward to in the sort of AI renaissance that we're living in. Just last thing I'll say here is, we're used to learning about the Renaissance in school and this idea of Renaissance people, right? The Da Vinci's, et cetera, of the world, who are just doing everything, it seemed like, right? He was a sculptor, he was a painter, he was a writer, he was an inventor, right? That sort of like Renaissance ideal or that Renaissance embodiment is what I'm talking about here when I say breadth is the new depth.
Interesting. Yeah, I think those key skills that you brought up are important to demonstrate, certainly when someone's looking for building their resume. What has changed in tech trends, Abhijit, since the publication of the report? Is there some key points that you might mention?
Yeah, I mentioned at the outset that the work that we do is focused on thinking about 18 to 24 months out. What is how the fringes or some people's tomorrows are set to become everybody's mainstream todays in the next 1 to 2 years. That is not happening anymore, right? In terms of like in terms of just the timeline is what I mean. When we started writing the report, AI agents and agentic AI were, really, just starting to be talked about. These days, when I go talk to clients about tech trends, or these days when I look anywhere online, that seems to be the only thing on anybody's mind, right? So I think the pace of change is obviously accelerating incredibly, especially when it comes to AI developments, just because of the nature of how it works, right? The more resources and time that is poured into these, large models and their capabilities, the sort of outcomes can be exponential, right? In a way that we're maybe not used to with other technologies. So that has definitely changed, right? And I think what it signals is a lot of the AI or emerging, technology news that we've been used to over the past year or two has been one of AI is augmenting our information, right? It's giving us just tons of content. It's tons of information. It's able to, process lots of data. This shift to agentic AI and agents that are actually able to like go out into your systems and actually execute tasks for you is a huge shift from augmenting information to augmenting our human execution. And that, I think, is going to be an interesting one for people to keep in mind as the next sort of set of tech trends comes out, and the next couple of years of emerging tech is these things actually starting to act on our behalves.
Right. It's a very good point, and we could probably talk about this for another all day. But those are very good points. The access to information is incredible for us who've grown up at a time where we used electric typewriters and party lines, right? So it's a big shift in how do you, as Michelle was talking about, how do you shift to that more engineering human experience? Yeah, very good. Haley, a similar question in Q1 of 2025. Are there trends that you've noticed in that initial part of the year that you'd want to highlight?
Thanks, Lori. So we are in the process of doing the Q1 2025 report. Some of the things that we've seen so far, job posting data. So for the city of Detroit, there's actually been a decrease in the job posting data, just slight around 100 less job postings than Q4 2024, but this is usually where we see an increase. So it's interesting that it is decreasing at this time. Wind region, there is an increase in Q1 2025 postings. So that's a little more on par with what it usually is, but it's still less than what we usually see for a Q1 increase. So we are still working on those numbers, looking at the employment numbers and all of that. And we haven't quite broken down the occupations yet, but we are watching for those trends, especially with the administration change.
Mm-hmm. Sure. I'm watching for questions in the chat. If there are any, feel free to bring those forward. I'm reading a note here. There was a mention by Abhijit about the significant cybersecurity efforts that are underway. How much of this effort is due to AI and the need to protect the integrity of the data?
Okay. Yeah, I would say sort of a couple of things going on, right? We've in tech trends of years past, we've definitely touched on the topic of AI related protection a little bit more. We do touch on a little bit in this year's report as well, on two sides, right? So number one, the proliferation of malicious content, deepfake content, overall suspicious content and information is much easier in a world where again, AI becomes more capable and, is accessible in the hands of bad actors. At the same time, people are finding ways to use AI tools to combat those very technology issues, right? And I think this is like a really sort of interesting flip side to the coin of, many of us, rightfully so, see headlines and worry about, how much, malicious content or misinformation can be generated by AI and can, make our cybersecurity systems vulnerable. Intel has developed a tool that helps with deepfake detection, where they actually have this tool actually analyzes the blood flow in human faces in order to understand whether or not a video is real, which is incredible in my opinion, and like super at the forefront of technology. Now, is there a point in the future where AI may be able to simulate that accurately and get around it? Maybe, So it's this sort of like constant cat and mouse game where we hope that the side of the good, the side of protecting our assets and keeping things honest is always a step ahead. But I think that's definitely one part of how the AI cybersecurity issues are going. And the other, like I mentioned earlier, the other side of this is all quantum, and when that becomes a true threat, what kind of scrambling we may see among organizations who are not prepared for that future.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We got some other questions coming in the chat. We got some time here. Who claims ownership of the products that AI creates? Is it the businesses on the AI platform? Has that conversation around integrity and the ownership and liability, if you will, if something's out there? Any information about that, Abhijit?
Yeah, this is a great question from Janet. It's a tough one, right? So I think for the most part, when we think about organizations, let's say like using AI to create some sort of automated tool for themselves, like, okay, it's going to take in this it's going to take in this contract and it's going to spit out like exactly what we need to know in order to like put it into a spreadsheet that helps us track things, or some sort of other database, like using AI in those sorts of like specific organizational needs. I don't think there's too much consternation over who owns that, right? Like it's clear that that has been tailored to an organization's needs, and the results of that, the outcomes of it are owned by that particular business. Now, let's say you're a business that is using AI as a chatbot or something like that, and you're plugging directly into an interface that's owned by one of the big large language models, the Meta, OpenAI, Claude, whatever you may be, and you're having it act as a chatbot for you to answer some questions from a customer about car maintenance or something like that, and the thing just starts spouting off some crazy misinformation, or just saying something entirely inappropriate to the customer. I think in those cases, like most of the clients that we talk to are like, my hands are off. I didn't make it say those crazy things. And so I think there's definitely a greater case to make there, that the platform, the creator of those tools, are more responsible for those outcomes when you interface with it in a sort of direct chatbot kind of tool, as opposed to taking it inside and actually customizing it to your needs.
Right. And I know there's terms out there for that, whether it's ghosting or it's dreaming. Those things seem to be happening. Yeah, it's hard to put your finger on that. Al from Washtenaw has put in a question: is there any survey data to predict the demand for cybersecurity skills, specifically for advanced manufacturing data protection and automotive vehicle data protection, V2X 88? I saw it. It's like reading an eye chart. I've started to dig into this space too, Al. It's looking at those skills and competencies that you're looking for, which are very similar to advanced manufacturing. But are there any surveys that you're aware of or data around that, Abhijit?
This one I'm not particularly sure. I'd have to check in on some of our cyber surveys. Specifically for advanced manufacturing data protection, I would say little less likely that we'd have something tailored to that industry from a cybersecurity perspective, but I can definitely take a look and get back to Lori and Michelle if I do have something to share.
Okay. I don't know, Michelle, you have any follow-up comments, or Haley, or if there's other questions out there. Thank you for those dropping that information and requests. I do not have any other questions awaiting me. We appreciate the three of you coming and sharing that information. There's a lot to massage and look at in your specific space, but very dynamic time that we live in for sure. Just a quick reminder, thank you again all for attending this morning. This information, including the recording and the slide decks, will be shared post-meeting through our communications manager, Elise Shalbert. If you have any other questions or follow-up, feel free to let us know. Thank you again, presenters. Great to hear from Deloitte, Abhijit, and Haley and Michelle. This will conclude.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Hope it was useful.
Bye.
Thank you all.
Have a great
Yep.
weekend.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
one.